What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Lockdown Universe, home of the bizarre, peculiar, and unheard of stories of UFO legend and paranormal lore. Welcome back, welcome back. Happy to be back. Hopefully you guys are doing awesome and taking care of yourselves. So today, we are going to talk about a strange Men in Black encounter in 1992 in Orange County, California, and what these Men in Black might actually be. It might be different than what you think. So, Men in Black stories have been around for forever. They've gone back to the Pennsylvania Acorn incident. They've gone back to, probably about the 50s, 60s, I want to say, is probably where it originated. I mean, the government's only really had UFOs in their possession since 47, so I believe that's when people are starting to show up. And what's interesting is that the Men in Black are not just in America, but they'll also travel down to South America. And what's really weird is that they showed up to that Varginha, Brazil incident where they saw like a little like red-eyed demon creature, those three girls, and the plates on the car that pulled up to their house were from America, all the way in South America. What'd they do, fly a car down there? Or they drive all the way down there? I mean, they can drive. You can drive to Brazil from America. The lands connect, but who the hell wants to drive through Central America, man? Too much crime. So, let's get into this story, and I want to kind of talk about the Men in Black. So, I'll turn this down here for you so you can enjoy the beautiful hand pan, but I'll turn it down here for a moment. So what I want to talk about here is how a large group of California kids were playing outside when they observed a huge saucer-shaped craft with a being in the window, so they could actually see the beings. And an M.I.B. agent later asked them about the sighting. So, the author writes, in the early 1990s, I was about 7 or 8. I played with about 15 other kids. We were all playing hide and seek, and I remember we were about to start a game, and 2 kids came running from the back alley, and they were yelling, "Look, look, 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 look." They were pointing up. We looked up, and it was a round, very big, and I mean a big saucer coming over the apartment building. All of us started to ooh and ah. And in all that amazement turned into fear as it was about 15 stories above us, which is pretty close, and it was making a crazy humming sound, kind of like that of an electrical sound. Many people report this sound coming from black triangular-shaped UFOs or even larger disc-shaped craft. This sounds like it was a bigger disc-shaped craft than just your typical, like, smaller craft of 15 feet or 30 feet. This thing, they're saying, later on he says that this thing compared to the Phoenix Lights, which was a huge city-shaped craft, city-sized craft. So, they sound like they're like an amp, for a guitar after you unplug it. It's like, I used to play in a band, we used to hear that all the time. So he says it was pulsating electrical feeling all throughout our bodies. Now that's interesting, because a lot of times you don't hear that. A lot of times you're going to hear that it's emitting a sound like a bass amp or something like that, real deep sound. But pulsating electric feeling all throughout their body, that's interesting too. I almost wonder if it's just based on their age that they were like, kind of transmitting the sound into their body or feeling like this whoosh from the amplification of it. Because if you've ever been to a concert and you stood in front of those 6-foot tall speakers that blast out the music from the band playing, and if anybody's playing a nice deep bass, if you're wearing shorts, it'll actually vibrate the hair on your legs. It's like that intense. I've been to a couple shows that were like that. So this is weird. Okay, this next sentence. We all literally started crying at the same time. What does that make you think of? It makes you think of that fear gas that emits from the Draco's craft that Randy Kramer talked about on Gaia. He states that we all literally started crying at the same time, and this was not normal crying, he says. That cry, as if we were being killed, is what it was. So they're screaming like they're being killed? Makes me think that this was similar to the gas that was on the Draco ships that was being emitted as a psychological weapon. Psychokinetic weapon. Okay? Something that will disable the enemy. Now you might say, well, why would this thing be flying over California, stop, emit this sound, cause these kids to basically feel like they're being killed, and just move on? Well, he says we all ran home terrified of what we just saw. This thing was so low and really big, the city lights lit the thing up. So you could see everything on the craft. We could see the windows, inside the windows. The little people were waving at us. I swear I'm not making this up. There were a lot of people who saw it. So if there's little people inside of there, it has to be the Greys, I'm assuming, or maybe some other being that is small. Doesn't necessarily always have to be the Greys, but some small other entity. And a lot of people are saying aliens are coming from the ocean, so who's to say it's not an alien from the ocean? The next day, we all gathered around the spot where we saw this. So we were sitting there talking about what we saw. And this guy walked up and he asked if we saw weird stuff last night. We told him everything. He wrote it down, and when we were done, he told us not to worry about it because we saw a weather balloon. Seriously? Oh, did I mention the guy was dressed in an all-black suit? I thought he was FBI because this happened way before the movie Men in Black came out. This sighting was way bigger than the Phoenix sighting. I don't understand why the story didn't blow up. This happened in either 1992 or 1993 in Orange County. Okay, so that's the story. So what are we going to talk about here? Okay, we have a couple things. Well, I kind of talked about it through the story, and then we got to the Men in Black issue. All right, so we have a couple things here. We have the sound that's being emitted through the UFO is causing these children to feel like they're dying, like they were being killed, being murdered. And they were screaming like it, and they all ran home. And a bunch of people saw it, and it was well lit, because it's flying over Orange County, a highly populated county in California. And these kids were old enough to be able to, reminisce about it, and, to kind of talk about the fact that it wasn't a mass hallucination or somebody playing a trick on them. The next day, the Men in Black show up, start asking questions about it. So let's talk about the Men in Black for a second, because the Men in Black have historically been talked about, described as these guys that look human, but they don't really look human. Some people have even been visited by them, like Albert Bender, who is a ufologist and interested in ufology, and he stated that when they showed up and visited him, that the Men in Black basically said he was running out of energy and needed water and needed additional energy, and he had to leave, like in a real robotic, weird way. I believe it was in the northern states. There was a woman who was visited by the Men in Black after an event happened near their business, and there's a camera on her, and the Men in Black come in, and you can see these Men in Black. These guys look like they're hairless, and they have the fedora hat on, and they have the black suit and the black trench coat on, like they're still hanging out with Biff and Marty McFly in the 1950s, but it's the 2020s. It makes zero sense why they would dress like that. Not even the people that work at the Pentagon today were dressed like that. So it makes zero sense. Guys that work for the FBI don't dress like that. I've met guys that work for the FBI, Homeland Security, all that stuff. They don't dress like that. They definitely don't wear fedoras, I can tell you that. They might wear a black trench coat, or they might wear, like a waist length jacket, but You know, they're not wearing a fedora, man. Who the hell's going to take them seriously? It looks ridiculous. The only thing they're covering up is their bald head. So to me, this story represents a few things. It represents that there was some alien in the craft. Now, could that have been the government testing craft out in a large city with fake little aliens on board and testing out different equipment on the human population to see how they would react? Well, you might say, well, why were there little people in there then? Well, from what I've understood and what I've read is that the government can and does do MILABs, military abductions, with either gray aliens or they dress up as gray aliens, which seems crazy. But if you think about it, when we're talking about like Project Blue Book or Project Blue Beam, I'm sorry, Blue Book's the old report, Blue Beam's the new war that they're going to wage with holograms. If they're using Blue Beam technology, they could Blue Beam themselves to look like aliens. And they could just wave to the people or whatever the case is, mask themselves while they're out flying these craft. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that's what it is, but they've done plenty of tests in California, especially the Bay Area, where they've tested all kinds of things from gases to bacteria to, and just released it on the public without them even knowing. So they could definitely test a UFO weapon that could induce fear into people and see how they react and see what's reported and see how if people live or die or whatever. Now, the next day, the Men in Black show up. Here's my theory. Here's a theory. I don't, who knows if it's true. Here's a theory. Well, what if the Men in Black are not really working for the government? They're not some sort of alien, or they're not some sort of like hybrid that the government uses to go out and interview people. They're not some sort of hybrid or clone type technology, but they're actually, in fact, a robot or a hybrid or an actual alien species that's just transmogrifying temporarily to interview people that witnessed an alien encounter or an alien ship and wanted to see their thoughts and just wanted to disrupt them. Well, why do aliens really care what we think? I mean, if they're going to come down and just do whatever they want to us, why would aliens care? There could be, the Men in Black aliens could be some sort of intergalactic federation security force that goes around and interviews people and interviews what this craft was doing and where it was from. Try to gather up as much, hieroglyphic language off of the ship that people can remember, or, what kind of mode of, of direction it was flying, or what kind of technology it might have been using. Was it blasting out 5 lights? Was it blasting out 4 lights? Did it have a center mass light? Did it look like it was picking anybody up for an abduction? All kinds of stuff they could ask and find out. Maybe the M.I.B are just like some sort of intergalactic Federation security force that go out and interview people and just find out a little bit more information, try to gather up info. It could be. Or they could be just clones that the government sends out so that they look like anybody else or no one. Because we have what? What do we have now? Maybe they knew ahead of time that we were going to have facial recognition technology. And they can just, if they send out these like faceless creatures that we'll never be able to zoom in on them or identify them with any pictures. They'll never show up on Google Images, and even if they do, the government could have scrubbed them out already, right? Now, if they're aliens, they're not going to show up on Google Images anyway. You won't be able to reverse look them up with the technology that's coming out. This is what's wild. We have technology already. That was on another podcast where an individual took a picture of another human, and he said, "I can pull you up on any picture on the internet." Because what the software does is it takes 120 points on your face from your picture and it looks up any pictures that are on the internet. As long as it's on the internet, it can find you. So it can actually identify you, man. Because if they can find like your Facebook page or any social media, they can find you. Or if anybody tagged you in that picture, now they know who you are. So guess what? If you ever wanted to keep yourself private, you better not show up in anybody's pictures, because if you do, and it hits the internet, even if you're in the background, it'll identify you. I mean, just think about this for a second. Think about all the pictures that you take with your phone. And if you've identified any of the people in the picture as somebody in your photo book, as a family member, it will identify them. So it'll say, hey, remember when you spent time with John? And it'll show you all the pictures of you and John as a memory photo in Google Photos. It's really wild. I don't know how many people that have iPhones have Google Photos, but Google Photos is amazing. It puts together all these montages of all this stuff, all these pictures that you have with John, Jennifer, whoever you're hanging out with, and you won't even know. I mean, it'll just put it together for you. It's really, truly amazing technology. So, in order to hide yourself, you'll either have to pull a Minority Report Tom Cruise and shove that thing up underneath your neck so that your face kind of half melts off, or you'll have to buy one of those masks that are all latex that you see on Facebook for like $250 and turns you into an old man or a young man or whatever the case is. It makes you look completely different. They also, now in China, in Japan, they're wearing these like white, not full masks, but they're like a mask that covers from like their T-zone, their eyebrows all the way down to like their mouth, so that they can't be identified on camera, so they can go out and be whoever they want and not be spied on. It's really crazy. It's really, really crazy. Could you imagine just a bunch of people walking around with like Jason masks on just so they can't be facially identified? It's really crazy, because it's going to eventually be able to track your gait and your height and everything, and just be able to track you. I mean, like, different technologies are going to be able to come out. They already have the security capability for you to put your hand on a plate if you're trying to get into a base, and instead of it taking your fingerprints, it actually looks through your hand and looks through all of your veins to make sure that the veins match up to the way that it looked yesterday. So that it's actually taking a vein biometric versus a fingerprint biometric. Wild shit, man. So, this story brings up a lot of questions. Was it the government? Was it really just little aliens? Why were they hovering over during the middle of the day if they were little aliens? Why would the government hover over the middle of the day if it was just the government? Were the aliens testing something out? Were they looking for somebody? Was the government testing out a weapon? What about the Men in Black? Are the Men in Black a government entity? Just a produced drone clone? Or are they, in fact, some sort of protector? Intergalactic Federation protector species. Just trying to hide their own identity, because they're trying to blend in and gather information. If you walk in looking like an alien, people are just going to freak out and run, right? Not going to give you a bunch of info. And anytime the M.I.B shows up, it almost seems as though they have some sort of mind control over people to a degree. Like when they show up to your house, or to witness's house, they'll just let them in. And it's like, why the hell would you let these weird-looking dudes into your house? But they do. And then they answer questions, and then, like, they even asked one of these UFO researchers, Dave from Utah, I think they call him Utah Dave, to erase some of the pictures that were on his computer. And this was on an episode of UFO Hunters. And he did it. I'm like, why'd you do it, man? They're just M.I.B. They're not even, like, they're not part of any government agency. They have no authority. But he did it. And I guess they must have threatened him, or they must have used some sort of telepathic communication power to make him do it. It's really weird. So I don't know who these guys are, but I think the more we ask questions, the more we can kind of narrow it down. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments section. I'd like to hear what you have to say. There's a lot of stuff coming out right now, a lot of weird crap happening in the world. So I'll talk about that in the next podcast, and we'll see what you guys think too. So take care of yourself spiritually, physically, emotionally. Follow through on your hobbies and your goals and your dreams. And as always, continue to question the universe around you. Till next time, guys, please take care of yourself. Surround yourself with white light. Pray, meditate. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Lockdown universe out. Peace.